Tracy here with a multi-spread scrapbooking process video. We have a lot to cover in this video, so I'm just jumping in with my contact sheets of the photos I want to include in these pages. Printing up these contact sheets helps me plan out the photos that I want to use before I know which sizes will fit in which parts of the project. This helps me be able to print the right sizes up once I've already figured out a plan. So you'll see me come back to those contact sheets a couple of different times. I'm also going to take a look at what paper and embellishments I have to use on this project. I have my huge stack of Studio Calico paper, which I've already dipped into for a previous page in the related travel pages that I have already happening in my album. I'm being mindful of the color scheme that I want to use, as well as the products that I have on hand. The products that I'm drawing from are actually quite old, and they might not have been the color scheme that I would have chosen if I had more modern products with me, but I've already started this series of pages using these products, and I'm really loving how they look, even though it wouldn't necessarily be something that I would have chosen, like I said, if I had newer products. But it's nice to use up what you already have. And I do have, at this point, I have some travel items coming. I just haven't received them yet. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm going to want to do one 12 by 12 page and two 6 by 12 pages. And so the fact that that green lined paper, I do have multiple sheets of it, it helps me be able to have these pages really pull together if I want to use the same background paper on all three of the layouts. I have that option. Now, before I commit to that, I'm just taking a look at what else happens to be in this stack. This Studio Calico paper is from several different Studio Calico collections from back in the day when they made paper. And it all really works well together, even though it's from a variety of different collections. So I'm just taking my time to look through what patterns I have there. I'm keeping an eye on things that might have a travel feel to them, but also things that might have a bit of a graffiti feel, because these pages are going to be about a couple of days that we spent in Berlin, and there's a lot of spray painting and graffiti in Berlin. And I'm also going to be documenting predominantly the wall. So the Berlin Wall, and the remnants of it, and the art gallery that is now at the wall. So I have a whole lot of photos to scrapbook here, and a lot of them are just photos of the art. And so I'm going to do a combination of pockets that will just hold photos with very little to no scrapbooking or journaling on them. And then there will also be some journaling as well. So I have settled on these as my little substack of papers that I will draw from, keeping in mind that I will probably be using the green lined paper, not the one that I have my hands on right now, but the one that's green with white lines on it as my background paper. So now that I've figured all of that out, I just have to have another look at these photos, because some of them I have stories to tell. I've already documented all of my journaling in a separate, I keep my journaling in the Notes app on my iPhone. And so I have a bunch of different ideas about how I might use some of this paper, and I'm keeping in mind the fact that I have several ideas for layouts here as well. And I'm trying to select photos that have stories to tell that I have specific journaling for, and then the ones that I don't have journaling for can just slide into page protector pockets that are just the shapes and sizes. So I have some of these are landscape photos and some of them are vertical photos. So I'm going to need a combination of different kinds of page protectors for my needs here. So I am, as you can see, I'm kind of landing on these papers which have this kind of very bright color scheme. We've got that super bright yellow paper, which I'm pretty sure is not going to actually end up being on these pages. Then we've got a bright reddish color, and also the greens and yellows and stuff. And some of these I know is going to end up on a later layout that I do, so not all of this is going to be in today's page. I'm starting with this series of 3 vertical 4x6 photos that I have. I think I'm going to have to cut them. I'm going to have to print them at a smaller size. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of eyeballing what size is going to potentially work here. And I'm using some of my inexpensive 4x6 cards that I got from Amazon. They're just really cheap cardstock cards. I cut 3 of them down to the identical shape, and I'm seeing how they're going to fit on a page like this in a series of 3. And then I will select the photos and print them up to fit in those spaces. So those spaces right now are 3 by 5 inches, and that gives me enough room to line them up vertically like that. And what you see me doing over there with my mouse pad is I'm just finding those photos in my camera roll. I've basically set all of these aside in a folder on my Photos app, which I use on my Mac. And I've selected them and I've sent them to print at the 3 by 5 size, which is what I had cut those pieces of paper down to. So in the meantime, I am just using the contact sheet of that to represent those photos. And here they are. It didn't take them long to print it all. So I am going to trim those up and you don't have to watch that. I do like to include my whole process, but when the video is as long as this one, I will try to cut out anything I can as I go along. So this is 3 different views of the same statue of a man bursting through the Berlin Wall. You can see it from the front and then from the back, and then the 3rd photo is showing it from the side. And this is one of those photos that I didn't think it would do it justice to document it with just one photo. So I am going to play around with different ways that I could do this. I was thinking about potentially putting this onto one of those 6 by 12 inch pages that I said I would be doing, but I've decided because of the size of them, and I didn't want to print them any smaller than this, because of the size of them, they fit much, much better on a 12 by 12 inch photo or layout. So this gives me space in the bottom for me to put my journaling about this, which I already have typed out, and in my notes app. So this layout is going to be very structured until something happens midway through that inspires me to do something with a little bit of a twist on it. So you'll get to see that happen, and I'll explain it as my thought process as I go. Because at this point, I think this will be a really good layout for me to just kind of have as like the first introductory page of this series of pages. And what I've decided to include here, the reason I'm on my phone, is there is a website that basically explains all of the art along this walkway along the riverside, and it includes this exact statue. So what I decided to do, because I was looking up the name of it, which is going to be the title of the layout, I noticed that when I looked up the name of the artwork, it came up with this website. So I decided to make a QR code of the website. And the app that I use for that, I'll just look it up here as I'm narrating. The app that I use for that is QR Tiger, but there's a bunch of different QR code maker apps that you can get. You pick whichever one you like, but if you don't have one, QR Tiger is my favorite one. It gives you several different options, although I always just use the basic one. I like to print it in black in the old-fashioned QR code way instead of using different patterns or dots and that sort of thing. And so that's what I did, and I will put that aside, and at some point I will print it up. Now, I'm thinking that this little map paper card, this little die cut from the set of die cuts that I just opened up, I thought that that might be a good mat for my QR code, so I took that out, which is going to introduce the color of purple, which features prominently in this whole overall page anyways, like in this whole collection. Not necessarily in this page, but I really love the addition of purple to this collection. The collection I'm using is from Basic Gray from way back in 2014. And so it is an old one, but a good one. I printed up that QR code at, I believe, 1 by 1 inch, and I trimmed it out with a bit of a white border. so that it will look pretty good there on that map paper. I like that. It's like a subway map or something. That collection was actually designed by Kelly Perky and created for basic gray. And I really love it. That teal and turquoise, like a light bluey color, combined with purple and orange. Oh, that's one of my favorite color schemes ever. So because of the orange in this collection, I decided to pull out all of my orange letters. I went over to my Thickers Rascog, and some of those are just too bright of an orange. I decided to go with this wood grain. It's not so much an orange as it is a wood grain, woody color, I guess. And I needed to pull up the website again just to see the name of the artwork because it is in German. So I think it's called Wir sind das Volk. I probably am not pronouncing that properly, but that's how it is in my brain. And because it's a different language, I'm just being very careful to make sure that I spell it properly here. I don't want to make any errors because that might make actually a big difference in the title. It means we are the people, and so it's appropriate for the theme of the stories that I'm going to be telling anyways, is about how the artwork around Berlin is very inspiring. It's very kind of I guess it emphasizes triumph over oppression and freedom, and hanging in there through thick and thin, and all of those messages that are very inspiring, particularly today. I'm going to mat that purple subway map paper as well, or transit map paper. I'm matting that on a piece of white cardstock just so that it has even more kind of outlining and emphasis on the page, and it kind of coordinates better with the items that are above it. I'm thinking I'll put some journaling right beside it, and I'm not sure if the journaling will be beside it kind of in a tiled way so that it looks like a grid, or maybe it'll be one whole big rectangle that will hold both the subway paper, QR code, and the title. And that's what I'm leaning towards. That's why I pulled out another piece of white paper here. I'm going to put some markings on it so that I know where to cut it. And now that I have the width, I'm going to put another mark and cut it down for the height. And so you see how this layout is taking on a very structured feel to it. And that doesn't really vibe with the artwork of Berlin, which is very messy and graffiti-like, and it's all about kind of like not doing what you're told or supposed to do. It's a very rebellious spirit, and so this page feels a little maybe counter to that idea, but I'm going with it anyways for now, and at some point I will have an idea to kind of embrace that almost subversive feel that the artwork in Berlin has at some point. You'll see me do that. I don't remember exactly when it happens in the process. Here's my first idea, is that first of all, that white paper is too boring. So let's cut the exact same shape and size of paper, but we'll make it be a patterned paper instead. In the meantime, I did print up my journaling, and I use a font on my Mac called Veterans Typewriter. I use it for almost all of my journaling, and that helps my pages be really consistent. And so I went ahead and printed that up on cardstock and trimmed it down, and now I can position it anyhow I want on this yellow piece of pattern paper. And so here I am in the process of doing all that. My letters got all messy, and I actually thought they looked kind of cool all messy like that. So I pushed them down like this, and I don't know at what point I had the idea that when I go to do the title, I'm actually going to, so here I am just kind of saying, what if I made them all messy, and this isn't messy enough? Because remember a few seconds ago when they were all pushed up at the top and they were all different angles and stuff? I really like this. This feels a little bit more like it's embodying in an artistic way that rebellious kind of subversive spirit, in that, you know, here I am breaking rules of scrapbooking the same way that we would, that the artists back in the day, and probably still today, would have been breaking all the rules of society to do their thing. In their oppressive society. So anyhow, without getting into too much, this is about scrapbooking, so we'll stay focused on that. I'm going to put this page together, and I've decided to do things like I'll put that subway paper a little askew, and we've got our words will be all askew, and here I am measuring this even though I am talking about doing it very askew. So anyhow, the thing about having this in such an aligned grid way with the lines on the background paper, and then having this be exactly where I wanted it to be so it's perfectly even, is that all of these even and aligned elements provide a nice contrast to the other parts of this page that will not at all be aligned. I'm going to use an even more scribbly, doodly kind of an outline than what I usually make by adding some extra little scribbly lines and extra little dots and stuff every here and there. And I am going to, I'll place these photos in a very aligned and measured way. And so between the placement of the photos and the placement of that yellow rectangle, those will be my predictable, aligned, following the rules elements of this page. And then some of the other things will be a little bit off kilter. We'll mat that QR code with the map paper, and we'll add some more doodly lines here. And we'll add some little scribbles to my doodles so that it looks messy. And we'll just place that a little bit askew. We'll place the journaling aligned, and that will help this stand out as very purposely askew. So we're placing that like that. And then I'm going to use this. This is actually Berlin washi tape. I got it in Berlin from an art store that had this collab with a washi tape company, and I got 3 rolls of Berlin themed washi tape, and it doesn't say the word Berlin or anything. It's a little bit more subtle than that, but it has the colors that are common in Berlin, like those primary colors with teal instead of green, and also some buildings and messy artwork and stuff. So now I just have to place all of these letters very painstakingly crooked and smushed up against each other, but I definitely want it to be very legible. So I am making sure that the letters don't get out of order. I just want it to look like a little collection of smushed up letters here. Oops, that's way too much glue. So my glue is too liquidy, and I need to sop up some of that extra glue. I'm looking at the page right now, and you actually can't see where I made that mistake now that the page is all dry, and I put some splatter and stuff on at the end as well. So I just cut out part of this. I did put all of the letters down, and there it is. That's how it looks. So next, I need to think about what other embellishments I might want to use, and I feel like I don't really need all that many, but I really do like this chipboard piece here with the teal color. It just adds this beautiful bright color to it, and if I add one there, I'd like to also add one up in the top opposite corner. And so I don't have 2 of the same one, but I think that these 2 work really well with each other. Obviously, they're from the same set, so of course they're going to work really well. I'm just thinking about how I might want to put that purple piece on, but I think I'm going to decide not to. And then I noticed that I do have some numbers in these die cuts. I like this little tab here, and that's where I'm going to put the English version of the title, is in the little space on that tab. But I noticed that I have the numbers, at least numbers 1 through 3. So I'm just looking for the 1 here. I can't find it anywhere. I also noticed some little corners that I thought I would put on these photos as well, if I can find a couple more of them, or at least 1 more. And still looking for the 1. and I'm not sure where I'm going to end up finding it. Yeah, I think I can't find the one, so I'm going to have to look in my stash for a little one. The good news is that these numbers are mismatched anyways, but I thought I would place each of them in the center of the photo, kind of where the platform that has the like the name on it, where the platform meets the actual structure itself. So I had to go into my stash and take out my beautiful trays of luxurious chipboard that's almost all Allie Edwards and a little bit of Studio Calico chipboard pieces in there. And I found a number. It was actually number 10, but I'm going to put it upside down so that it looks like it says 01. And now I'm going to put one staple on the 1, and I'm going to put 2 staples on the 2. And then let's place the 3 in exactly the same spot, and we'll put 3 staples on that one. We will place this chipboard sticker right there, and this chipboard sticker right here. And then this page is almost done. I do still have to put that little tab that's going to say the English version of this title, which I kept forgetting the exact name of it. It is We Are the People. So I'm going to use my marker to just put that on the little tab. And then I'll tuck the tab down here in the corner. And my journaling says, we were so fortunate to travel with Olaf, Nicole, Tom, and Dorothea. Trained in history, they brought such depth to everything we saw. They could explain the political details, the cultural meaning, and the small stories that made each stop in Berlin feel alive. The East Side Gallery was just one highlight among many. I felt like we were given a tour that was richer and more personal than anything we could have experienced on our own. Now let's finish this up with a little bit of splatter. And, looking at this page now that everything is said and done and it's in its page protector, I feel like I could have gone for bigger splatter. I used my fan brush to splatter. So this is my little splatter kit. It is a little tin tray that has a tube of black acrylic paint, a brush, and that's it. And I'm using my fan brush. I keep this fan brush right along with this kit. I have 2 kits. I have a white one and a black one. And I keep the fan brush right with it because the fan brush gives me little teeny tiny splatters, very fine. And I don't know why I thought I wanted fine splatter, because when I look at it now, I feel like it really needed significant splatter. So this is my second little splatter kit. This is the white one, and it's gouache that I have in this one because I didn't have a tube of white acrylic paint. I just had a tube of gouache. So that's what I put. It fit in the tin, and I just have my shortest little brushes in there so that they fit in the tin. Everything is together and works. I'm going to add some white splatter as well with a similar kit, and it looks good. I just wish that the splatter was bigger. I think that some nice dramatic, really, really big splotches, maybe even with a dropper, would look even better, especially given that I'm kind of going with this contrast between the aligned items and then everything being askew. Nothing like big splotches of paint to really kind of drive home that message. But maybe I will do it before I put these in whatever album they end up going into. I think it's going to go in my Travel Project Life album. But that page is done, and I do need to tidy up before I start to work on the rest of this page. Now, I am going to leave a good part of this process in, even though it's kind of me bumbling around trying to figure out what I want to do, because that is an important part of the process, actually. So I have this We Are Memory Keepers page protector that has a 6x12-inch pocket and then 3 4x6-inch horizontal pockets. And I thought that that would give me a really great opportunity to combine some just kind of pockets that just have photos in them. So no real scrapbooking. Some of them will have some journaling on them as well, but not really scrapbooked per se. And to be able to combine those, so I'm choosing some of my horizontal photos from the East Gallery here. The East Gallery is the art gallery that's been created on what's left of the Berlin Wall. And on the east side, of course, and it's all artwork that represents freedom and perseverance and all that sort of things. So I thought that that would be good to put there. And then my story for inside of that one is just one of the pictures represents one of the stories that I have. So I have these collections of journaling that I kind of wrote down, combined with things I wrote while I was there and ideas I had when I came home. One of them was about touring with historians that made its way onto the 12 by 12 page I just did. Another one is about my thoughts on the wall, just my own kind of personal thoughts on the wall. I have more journaling about how surprising it wait what is this one about? About how there are pieces of the wall all over Germany, not just here, that they kind of moved them and have them displayed all around Germany to remind people about, you know, the process that took place. And yeah, so I also have another page protector here that is from scrapbook.com that has vertical 4x6 pockets in it. So any of my vertical photos are going into that one. And yeah, so this is where having that contact sheet is really helpful, because it allows me to basically plan out where everything is going to go before I print it out. It turns out I'm printing almost all of them in the full 4x6 sizes, but it's very possible that I might have needed to do it differently than that. And there was actually one or two that I ended up printing differently. So for example, one of my verticals I ended up printing at 3x4 instead of a vertical 4x6. And then I also had, of course, the photos that go into the 12 by 6 inch pocket. Those are different sized as well. But I had no way of knowing which photos I would want to use for what until I put it all out. So here we are at day 2. I had done some planning ahead of time. And now this is, I believe it's a full week later, or no, it's the next day. I scrapbooked 2 days in a row, and I live streamed 2 days in a row with my tiaras over on Patreon. And so here I have those page protectors that I had sorted out the day before, so I knew exactly what's going to go in each of those slots. And then the thing I did off camera before I started this process on day 2 was I actually printed out photos in the sizes that I wanted. So I'm just sliding the ones into the 6 by 12 inch page protector that I have bigger stories for, because those will become 6 by 12 inch layouts. And then everything else I'm just putting in to the pockets. Again, I'm going to leave this process in here, even though there's nothing super inspiring or artistic about it, but I find it kind of, I guess, rewarding or soothing to see things come together. And so I am just including this process. So, as you can see, some of these page protectors are interestingly tighter than others. And so here's that one that I have that I actually printed it out at 3x4. And what I've decided to do with this one is to put it beside another amount of journaling that I have. So I have some journaling called The Wall as a Symbol of Hope. And I basically categorized all my journaling with these titles. And so I'll be putting that next to that overall shot of the wall, because it's kind of shows the overall shot of the wall, whereas all these other photos are individual pieces along the wall. So this is that scrapbook.com page protector with the 4x6 inch vertical slots in it. I really don't use vertical 4x6 photos very often, so it is good to have a few of these on hand, even though I don't use them that often. It's, you know, if I didn't have them, I would have been having to figure out a different way to do this, or place an order and wait for something to arrive. So I like to have just an assortment of unusual ones, just in case I want to do something a little bit different like I did today. So as I said at the beginning of this whole process, which was actually the day before, I wanted both of these layouts to have the same backgrounds on them. Well, it's actually going to be 3, because there's 2 6x12 and then the 1 12x12. So I wanted them to have the same background paper. So I started by taking that second piece of the green paper and cutting it in half. Now on this layout, I am featuring a picture of the beginning of the gallery, which was actually the end for us. We started at the other side of it. I think it's 2 kilometers long. And it says East Side Gallery. It's been really graffitied up there, and I really like that look. And I have some journaling here that I'm actually going to type onto the paper, like onto the background paper. Thinking about potentially using the same letters that I used on the other one, but I'm not actually going to even put a title on this. I'd love to have a chance to use some of these flare badges that came in the collection. So I have that in mind, and I'm just kind of thinking about what options I have for embellishing before I decide exactly what I'm going to do here. But my main objective here is for these pages to hold the photo and my extra journaling that I wanted to put. So that's what I'm doing with my trackpad there, is I'm just selecting my journaling and getting it ready to print. And if you want to see my behind the scenes, oh, actually, I'm not going to print it. I'm going to be putting it on the background paper. I'm going to be typing it. But if you wanted to see how I print my journaling onto labels, stickers, or cards or whatever, I share all of that in the live streams, and I just edit it out for the process videos so they're not super long. But if you want to see that process, just join me over on Patreon. You can do so for as little as $2 a month. There's my plug. And have access to those live streams to see some of the behind the scenes content there. So I wanted to have a placeholder for where the photo is so that when I run this through my typewriter, I don't accidentally type in the area that's going to be covered by the photo. So I just use some washi tape in order to temporarily mark that off, and then I can easily just pull that off after the fact. I'm using my Vintage Brother typewriter here, and I am figuring out where my little margins need to go. So this typewriter has these little margin things that limits how far over you can push the carriage on a return. And basically I want it to, that helps you keep your typing aligned. And then another one that marks where the ding goes when the bell happens to tell you to press that to return that carriage. So I am typing out, I'll tell you what I typed out. I did cut, so no, actually I sped up to 8 times the speed, the typewriting part, so that this video wouldn't be too obscenely long. It's already almost an hour, or I guess it's 50 minutes or something like that. Anyhow, here's my typing. It says, my thoughts at the wall. Standing in front of the East Side Gallery, I felt the weight of history. The art painted on the wall is beautiful, but what struck me most was what it represents. This concrete once kept people apart, but now it is a place where people come together. It is a reminder of how hope, in capital letters, survives even in the darkest times. When people work together, even the strongest barriers can be dismantled. And my goodness, I got a little choked up just reading that journaling, because I feel so strongly about these issues. So anyhow, what I want to point out about this journaling on the background paper is that you see me going back and forth there, is that I often make mistakes in my typing, and all that I do when I make a mistake is I just use the back key and then the correct key, and then the back key and the correct key and the back key and the correct key, so that the correct letter, it gets really dark and basically overwrites the incorrect letter. The other thing that you'll notice about this typewriting when you see the close-up photos at the very end, and there are close-up photos at the end for you to watch, the other thing to keep in mind is that it's messy. There are some letters that are too light, and there are parts that are too cramped. There are some places where I forgot to put a space. And that's all part of using a typewriter, is that it's not like a computer where you can just backspace and fix it. So I really like the charm that gives to a page. And so, yeah, I just go with it. If you want perfectly typed journaling, you really shouldn't use a typewriter. I just used a gray pen to put a circle around my A, because there was no @ symbol on oh, look, it looks like am I underlining that? No. I think I was looking for some places that might needed fixing up, And that's what I was doing with my journal. I did not underline my journaling. I have a gray pen out there that I'm using for that. There was no @ symbol, so I just put an A, a lowercase a, and then I put a circle around it to make it look like an @ There's a little bit of space here, and it just so happens that it's perfect for a piece of this Berlin washi tape. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm using my little tiny planner ruler to tear that so that it's torn in a straight line. And that is basically the main part of this layout. And now I just want to embellish it a little tiny bit. I think I'll put a banner of the yellow right here. So I just want to grab put a pencil line there. And the reason I'm structuring it like this, I'm using that same paper that shows up on the 12 by 12 layout, the same patterned paper. I'm structuring it like this so that these pages will all have a similar vibe to them. So that 12 by 12 page had a rectangle of this paper on it, and it had a very kind of grid-like layout. So I thought I would go with a grid-like layout with this too, and also use these rectangles in the similar paper. So basically there's going to be a header and a footer on this page. And I also cut the same length and similar sized pieces of that wood grain piece with the floral pattern on it, just as a little bit of extra interest on this header and footer piece. So we'll layer these two together, and then we'll layer these two together as well. And then I just want to put the two of them together so that I can make them be as close to the same size as possible. And then those will do a pretty good job of capping off the top and bottom of this page. And you see there is a margin over there on the left-hand side that doesn't have anything in it. I left that blank specifically so that I could put a tab there, and it will be emphasized because of all the blank space that will be beside the tab. I'm going to use my marker to do some doodly outlining. I didn't add the scribbles that I did in the first page, but maybe I should have. I don't think it really matters, but if I wanted them to be more similar, I could have used the similar scribbly look to my journaling, to my outlining, I meant to say. So we'll place these like this. And then you see that extra space over on the left-hand side. I just need to find a little something to put there. But first, I thought I would decorate up the top and the bottom just a little bit more so it's not just plain. So I'm looking for some embellishments that I could put in various places here just to zhuzh up the page a little wee bit. I'm really drawn to the idea of putting something on the photo. There's so much negative space. I specifically took these photos so that there was a lot of negative space so I could do some journaling on them. There's sky above it, and it was a cloudy day, so the sky is like a bright white. And there's also street below it, like part of the sidewalk. So lots of space for embellishing or doing some journaling or putting a title or something. But because this is a bigger spread, it's not like if it was on a Project Life page, that would be a great opportunity to do something like that. But I don't feel like I really need to do that on this page because it already is going to have a lot going on. I'm going to layer this camera flare badge with this gorgeous big chunk of map paper, this beautiful big circle. It's a chipboard piece. And it's not going to go in the center like that. I think it's a little off when it's in the center. Instead, I'm going to align it more with the journaling than with the overall page. And then I have that really beautiful purple arrow that goes from a very, very soft lilac color to a dark purple color with orange dots on the other end of it. And those orange dots pick up perfectly on the orange that's on the tag that's at the top of the page. Speaking of that tag, let's add a date. July 15th, 2025. And then we'll use our ATG to tuck that in and attach it to the page. Let's adhere this circle so it's aligned with the journaling, and then we'll also attach the little flare badge, which has adhesive backing on it already as well. So those two just stick down pretty easily. And we'll also stick down the arrow, even though it's pointing to nothing. I usually like my arrows to point at something, but in this case, eventually it's going to be pointing at the two men who are kissing in that famous photo. Not photo, but that famous artwork on the wall. But I haven't put that in place yet, so it looks like it's pointing at nothing. There, that's what it's going to be pointing to. Probably the most famous of all of the pieces on the East Side Gallery. I am going to also put this piece in as this half page protector. So it's a 6x12. It's by American Crafts, and it holds 3 horizontal 4x6 pockets. You could just trim down a bigger page if you didn't have these half sizes, but I have a whole bunch of these. I don't know what I'm doing there. I don't know. Yeah, yes. So I am, whoops, that came off when I went to put this in. What I've decided to do is to remind myself that I'm going to need another layout in front of this one. And by the time I narrate this, I already have that page made and it's already in there. Unfortunately, there won't be a process video, but I will do a kind of like a walkthrough video about that page because it was a fun one to make. It introduces the city of Berlin. So I have those photos in place, and I just wanted to add just a little something, not too, I didn't want something that's going to take away from the artwork that's already there on the photos. This is something that I do when I'm taking photos of artwork, is I don't like my artwork to compete with someone else's artwork. So I just want a simple tag here to put on the side, like a simple tab, just to indicate that there's a page here to be turned that's separate from the other pages. It's a smaller size. I like to put a tab on an insert, but I don't want it to be anything super decorative or fancy. So I got these Avery tabs, I'm sorry, I keep calling them tags, but they're tabs. I bought them from Ali Edwards. I think you can probably get them at office supply places too, though. And I've decided to just stamp some phrases on it. I have the phrase note to self and reflections, and they're both phrases that are on this roller stamp from Ali Edwards. And they're very, very small phrases. And so I'm just picking out 2 of them that I think will work well. I was thinking about maybe doing 1 on each side, but once I started typing, or not typing, but stamping, what I decided to do was to just fill the whole little insert with a whole bunch of these phrases. So I'm using 2 different shades of gray, a light gray and a dark gray. They're from Stampin' Up. And I'm just stamping over and over and over again. And then every once in a while, I'm putting one of the red in there. It's pink, actually. Flirty Flamingo, probably. So then I'm just switching to a different phrase. One of them was notes to self and one of them was reflections. And I'm just stamping all over that little insert that slides into the tab. And there's how it looks. This is one of my favorite things to do with tab inserts. Just cover it in a phrase. Nice messy look. It'll take a little bit of coaxing to get that in there, and I do have to cut off the little perforated edges there that were keeping it from sliding in properly, and then I'll just clean off my roller stamp from Ali Edwards, and I keep a little tag with it that has all the phrases on it so I know what to look for. And now that little tab is ready to adhere right here, and they have, these tags have adhesive on them already. So I just have to pull off the backing of one, stick it down, and then pull off the backing of the other and stick it down. And now this page protector is complete, and it doesn't compete with the artwork in the pockets. Now here, you'll notice this is that one 4x6 that I printed up, the vertical 4x6, I printed it at 3x4. So I knew that it would fit in a 4x6 pocket if I did that. And there's just an empty space there. I can't remember if I'm going to do that now or if I'm going to do it later. It looks like I needed to poke some holes in this page. Yes, because the page protector that I was using here, for whatever reason, was not the right kind of a page protector. It was probably an Ali Edwards or a Studio Calico one or something that was the holes were not going to align with the rings on my binder. So I just had to fix that first. Now I will go back and add some typing, some typewritten journaling next to that 4x3" photo, but I guess I'm not doing that yet. It will definitely be in the photos at the end if it's not included in this process. So now I'm on to the second 6x12" page here that I'm including in this spread. And for this one, I have one horizontal and 2 vertical photos of the same thing, basically from different angles. And this is not ideal. It is hard to work with landscape and portrait photos together. It is very hard to work with them, but I'm going to give it a try. So as you can see, I started by gluing my 2 verticals together so that they're a little bit askew and they'll look like they are just kind of plopped on the page in a casual way. I marked out the place where I want to do my journaling with some washi tape like I did before. And I think I just needed to tighten up my ribbon there before I did this typing. Again, I have sped up my typing part to 8 times the speed, so that it doesn't take too much time. But basically my journaling here says, one of the things that surprised me was how pieces of the wall have been placed in different parts of Germany. It is unsettling to see them in unexpected places, but also important. They stand as reminders that freedom is hard won and cannot be taken for granted. We saw different segments in our travels, and each one was a quiet call to remember the past. And again, I'm making mistakes and I'm just doing my best to either move on and pretend that they're not there or to cover them up by doing backspace and then the correct key, backspace and the correct key over and over again until I have basically drowned out the mistake. And that means that my resulting piece is inky in places, right? Like it has extra heavy letters every here and there, and I actually really love how that looks. Also, depending on how fast I was typing, when I type super fast, also typing on these typewriters really hurts your fingers if you're not used to it. But there are places where it's really faint because I wasn't pressing hard enough, and places where it's really dark. And I also really like that variation too. It's one of the things that makes using a typewriter interesting. So that's why we do it. So I want to really embrace that variation that you get and that imperfection that you get when you're using a typewriter. So I've managed to place my photos in what I think is a pretty good way, considering how challenging it is to use the different orientations. I'm placing this page beside the other one, even though you're not going to see them at the same time, because I do want them to be reflections of each other. This one is going to be on the flip side of the one that's already done. So I'm finally getting to use that purple adventure oval die cut that I love so much, and also that purple circle that almost landed on the first 12x12 page. It's going to go right up there on that photo. I used some of my Berlin washi tape to stretch across the midsection of this page. And then I'm just going to add these 2 little chevrons that are pointing at one of the secondary photos there. And that's all she wrote on this one because, it's just a secondary page meant to hold some journaling and some photos. I don't need to do too much more to it. So if you like this video, hit that subscribe button and stick around. There is more where this one came from. A special shout out to my amazing Patreon community who you will see their names in an upcoming screen. As I put these into the book, there will be photos as well. Please check out our Patreon community for live streams and a Book of Me project we're working on and all sorts of things. A big shout out to all these folks you see on the page right here. They really do help make this channel happen. But I also wanted to talk about the photos you're going to see, because here is the layout that you saw come together, and I don't really need to say much more other than look at how great it looks. I love using these older products. It's like these really fresh colors, because at least for me anyways, I haven't scrapbooked with this kind of a color scheme since way back in 2014. But next is what I really want to show you. So here, see under the Berlin wall painting there, all of that typing is stuff that I put on there. And then on the flip side, we have the 4x3-inch journaling piece that you can't see anymore because it's flipped. And here's how the last page looks, and then the very last page right here. So you'll see that I did add some journaling to different parts of it. If you want to see the process for that, you can check out the Real Play live stream video on my Patreon page. Whether you do that or not, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate. Leave me a like and subscribe if you want to support this channel. I really appreciate it. Have a really great scrappy week.